The Volkswagen Tiguan is all new for 2025, and I think it's one of the best values in this segment, if not the absolute best. But in this video, I'm going to cover the exterior changes, the interior changes, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and also the pricing and how it compares to those competitors these days. So as far as the styling here for the Tiguan, well, as you can see, it's really sharpened up and also looks especially good in this Monterey blue color. One of my favorite colors, I think, for cars in general, but I mean, Volkswagen does it really, really well with this metallic flake you have in it. It's a really nice color. But as far as the exterior changes here for the Tiguan, so it's actually gotten shorter for 2025 here. That's due to shorter overhangs. The wheelbase itself is the same as the last generation because it's just on a modified and updated version of the last generation's platform, but it is a new platform called the MQB Evo. And anyway, as far as the size differences, it's about 2 inches shorter actually than the last generation. Width is about a ½ inch wider, and then height is actually the same as the last generation there. And as far as the looks up front, I think it's really nice and sharp with those IQ light headlights that they have there that look really, really cool. That is a more advanced light. You're going to get a simpler light in the lower trims, but looks really great here in this one. And this has the R-Line design with this sportier bumper. You will again get a less sporty bumper on those lower trims as well. Coming down to the sides though, another thing, you have these sporty, bigger wheels that are 20 inches, and I really love the combo of the black and the silver kind of pockets in them. As an enthusiast, it's hard to see the R badge on a vehicle that's not an actual R model. Maybe someday we'll get an R version. There is going to be a new Tiguan Turbo for 2026 that does give you more power, but this one doesn't do a ton of power here so far. It doesn't really live up to that R-Line designation. But anyway, I'll talk more about that whenever we're out on the road. But on the sides here, you can see that it's really nice and sharp. Again, I like the crease there as it flows from the rear doors into the quarter panel area there. And then going out to the back, you see some really sharp taillights. Once again, they do also have an illuminated Volkswagen badge, but this looks great. You also have the illuminated Volkswagen badge on the front with that light bar there, but in the back, it's great to have that. It's a really cool touch at night, and this also does have welcome and walk away animation sequences and all that. And just a nice look out back there as well, especially again with the sportier bumpers here for the R-Line version. But overall, I think it's a really nice size still. They didn't go too bloated with it, but it's also not too small. I think it's really a nice Goldilocks size here and looks really great in person. The interior of the Tiguan is really, really impressive. I'd argue this is one of the nicest interiors in this segment. It is so impressive with the real wood. It is actually real wood. The quilted seats that are massaging, the huge screen, the really cool ambient lighting at night. There are just so many great touches this interior, and also some small details that are really well thought through as well. So anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these magnificent seats, and we did a road trip actually of over 6 hours in this vehicle, and this seat was so nice, held up really well. They're quilted, they're heated as standard, and ventilation is here on these top trims, and they also have massage on the top trim as well. And the massage isn't like, I think the Mitsubishi Outlander has a simple massage as well, where it just basically pushes the lumbar in and out. This is an actual advanced massage that actually makes some luxury brands look bad with the massage being so good. I mean, there's a bunch of different programs, and it's really nice with the pinpointing of everything. It's a really nice massage that was very nice to have, and arguably that makes this one of the most luxurious in this segment as well, because that's something that, again, no one else really offers. And these seats are really, really great. Now, the cooling I wish worked a little better though. You barely notice it. If you kind of lift your back up, you can kind of get a little more ventilation there, but it doesn't get nice and cold like some other competitors do for their cooled seats. So that's the only knock I can give, but otherwise these are great seats. The steering wheel here is really great as well. So Volkswagen has seen the light. They ditched the capacitive touch buttons they previously had. We now have regular ordinary buttons here on the steering wheel. It's also a heated steering wheel, I believe, as standard, but a great wheel. Has a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notch, and some really cool contour to the wheel as well, and it just feels great to use. We also have a 10.3-inch digital gauge cluster as standard here in these, and that's a little small compared to some of the others out there that do bigger clusters, but it's completely sufficient. It gives you all the info you need, and actually has more customization than a lot of the competitors, where each of those pods on the left and on the right you can customize to show whatever you want. You also have various views, so you can have more traditional gauges or less traditional gauges, whatever you want there. there, and it's really well done. It also echoes the ambient lighting with the color choices there. I really like the way they set that up, actually, and it's really well done. You also do have a head-up display here in these top two trims, and that's been really great to use as well. It gives you all the safety assistance info and all that in there too. You also have a column mounted shifter here now that's taken from the electric Volkswagens, and that's great. It's nice and easy to use. I think it's actually quicker than a shifter you got to come down to the center for, and that opens up, you know, all this area in the middle. Coming over to the middle here though, now as standard you're going to get a 12.9-inch touchscreen, which should be completely sufficient, but this top trim gives you a 15-inch touchscreen, and the first time you sit down on this with this screen on, you'll be like, whoa, like it's a big screen, the biggest in the segment as well, by the way. But it's so well integrated and very high resolution, and I think that Volkswagen has really fixed most of my complaints with the software. So as you'll see, it does have various pages. You can customize the widgets and all that, and you will also see that you have your on-screen climate controls. You don't have any physical buttons. You still have these little slider touch-sensitive things that can be a little bit annoying, but it's basically just for changing your auto climate, which is typically a set it and forget it thing, not something you're going to be interacting with every day. So I find that to be not super annoying, and it's great that you do have, you know, quick access to cooled seats, heated steering wheel. There's a physical button for still on the wheel here. So all the stuff you use is one tap away still. That's great. Now you still have the annoying volume slider, but you still actually do have a volume knob down here, which is a new addition I'll talk about in a second. And of course the volume controls on the steering wheel, so even that's a non-issue to me. And it does have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. That all worked flawlessly all week. No connection issues, which is commendable as well, because there are still some others that can be a little buggy. And you know, you have a nice shortcuts menu there for vehicle functions. The map stuff that's baked in all works fine. Radio tuning is really nice and easy, and I like that there's now a player page. They didn't have that before. That's been in this new update. So now if you want to just see all the song info for the radio station you're listening to, you have that there. It's easy to find radio stations and then just save them and have all your favorites. Nice and simple. So this is a massive improvement, and I actually really enjoy this infotainment system now. And yeah, it's just really actually nice to have a big screen, because other companies, they just tack on a screen and it's not very well done. But this, it's gigantic, yet it doesn't block your line of sight, at least me being 5'9". It doesn't come up any higher than the hood does. And so, yeah, I'm actually very impressed, and I'm happy to say that I think Volkswagen has redeemed themselves here. Coming down, there's not a whole lot else. Like I said, you do have this new volume knob down here, and it also does have your start button next to it, but this also is a multi-function button, so it actually has proximity, and once you get close to it, it can turn in, if you press it, it'll turn into your drive mode selector or your atmosphere selector, which is for ambient noise and stuff if you want. But, you know, it's just one tap to change your drive mode if you want, and then it goes back to being a volume knob. So it's not too confusing. I saw some others really annoyed about this knob. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's just an extra volume knob for the most part. Most people don't play around with drive modes anyway. So it's a nice extra big volume knob that also looks nice, and I have no complaints with that. I think that's pretty cool. And then also in this center area, we have a good amount of storage space. So at first glance, it might not look like a ton, because you just have your two cup holders, a tiny little slot for a phone or something, and then you have this one little bin at first glance, which is actually nice. It has two USB-C jacks that are high speed, and also a 15-watt wireless charging pad with a cooling function for it too, so it keeps your phone cooler there while it's doing that wireless charging, and a nice bracket to hold it in place, so it actually does reliable wireless charging. But you will see though that when you open up this lid here, you'll see this actually goes way far back, and this is a removable tray, and you'll see another power outlet back there. But that means this could be a giant bin if you want it to be, and you know, have this little thing above it if you want, or whatever. But actually a good amount of space. Still might not be the absolute best in this segment, but I'd say one of the best, and very well done, very clever use of space there. You also have a nice padding here for that center armrest. Speaking of padding, you also have padding down by your knees here, which is something a couple competitors have, but most of them don't, and that was really nice. I always appreciate knee padding, and especially using adaptive cruise on the highway, just kind of resting my leg up against this for hours on end. It's really nice to have a little bit of padding there instead of hard plastic. You also see padding up on the dashboard. It's also on the top of the dash in addition to the lower part, and just all again feels very, very premium. And on the doors here, you have a nice large pocket that actually goes way further back than it looks at first sight. And so that's really great to have as well. And it's also worth mentioning one last thing too, that the passenger has all the same luxuries for the seat as the driver. Some others, you know, massages only on the driver's seat, or, you know, you don't have all the same advanced stuff, but this has everything the same for the passenger, which is great. The one last little thing I'll say up front here is this has this Harman Kardon stereo. It's a 12 speaker stereo. It does have like a surround sound function, but it sounds kind of weird where it basically just puts a lot of the sound to the rear speakers and just feels not very surround-like. And, you know, Harman Kardon, it's an okay stereo. I don't think it's the best though. There's several competitors actually that have Bose stereos that I think actually sound better. And, you know, that's something a lot of the competitors are, you know, upping their game with stereos these days. And unfortunately, Volkswagen just doesn't have great stereos, in my opinion, in this one. Again, it's fine, but I don't think you're going to be wowed by it necessarily either. Yeah, so anyway, just very impressive up front here though. Moving on to the back seat here in the Tiguan, it's also really nicely done. It is actually a tiny bit more rear legroom than before, thanks to the better packaging they are able to do, because there is no third row. There was an optional third row, I believe, in Tiguan's before. You don't have that here anymore. I don't think anyone really misses it. If you want 3 rows, just get an Atlas and have an actual usable third row. This, you know, is the better way to go. And so anyway, that second row is still very nice and comfortable. Here in this top trim, you have heated outboard rear seats. They also have their own climate control. So this is tri-zone climate technically, and 2 more USB-C jacks, their own air vents when they look forward. There's also a fold down center armrest with cup holders built into it, and also pockets in those doors as well. And they also have this great panoramic moonroof to look out of here in these upper trims as well. And it actually does open up too, so it's not just a piece of glass. It does open, and a really nice panoramic roof. And then moving on to the cargo space here, that looks to be about the same as before to my eye. It's pretty nice and wide, pretty nice and long, and the really nice thing is beneath the floor you still have a spare tire. That's something that is getting more and more rare these days, so it's great that we have that there. A really good amount of space. It's of course a power lift gate as well. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Volkswagen also has a very nice key. It's this glossy piano black kind of key with some metal on the sides, and nice buttons there on the back. The other thing I'll say is the buttons, you can't really feel them very well, so it might be a little tricky to do without looking, but otherwise this is a really nice key, and nicer than some luxury brands in my opinion. So I really like that. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start on all of these, by the way, as standard. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2025 Tiguan. So the first thing you notice about it, well, I think the first thing that I notice is that you occasionally have a little bit of a delay whenever you're starting off from a stop. So I'll demonstrate here. I'm going to come to a stop, and then, okay, that time it was responsive, but it was a little bit of an off and on thing. This is kind of a theme with Volkswagens and Volkswagen Group in general, where throttle response is just not good in many of these models, where it's either too laggy or it's too much of a guessing game where you're not getting enough and then it gives you too much, and it's just like this off and on switch almost, and you're dealing with a Jekyll and Hyde kind of throttle response. I don't love it. Now, I mean, I've driven this vehicle almost 500 miles this week, so I have adapted to it. It still gives me awkward starts every once in a while, and it's not always predictable. I don't like that, and that's something that most of the competitors, almost all of the competitors, don't struggle with. So this isn't like some impossible task. You don't have to settle for this, and I don't know why Volkswagen doesn't drive the competitors and see that everyone does this better than them. But anyway, that's been one of my biggest gripes this week. And it's also sometimes whenever you're up at speed and you like put your foot down and make a pass on the highway, for example, where sometimes you'll be waiting a little bit before it actually starts to go, and then it explodes once it finally does. You know, so, but then other times, like right now, it's pretty well behaved. So it is kind of fickle, and that's what makes it hard. If it was even consistently bad, then I would know what to expect, but I never know what I'm going to get. Am I going to get response or am I not? Other things though, now all the other stuff is mostly very well done. We have nice and light steering, but has a little bit of feel to it. I like the way that's set up. You have excellent visibility here. You have a nice large windshield, nice thin A-pillars, nice large side mirrors off onto the doors. You have a great view out of the back. You know, and all that is great. So, you know, there's a lot here to like still. Just, you know, sometimes that throttle is a little iffy. Brakes also feel nice and normal and predictable, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it up into the sport mode here, and let's turn down onto this back road and see how it accelerates. And here we go. right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going. That's the delay, you know, especially when you put your foot down. So if you're in a hurry, and now it's sitting at 6,000 RPM, so it really is sporty. Which is also strange because most others will then upshift. They don't just hang out at high RPMs all the time. But anyway, so we are running a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. And for the Volkswagen fans, this is the Evo 5 version of the EA888. So it's a new evolution of that engine that's been proven a very reliable, very good motor. And in this application here, it does 201 horsepower, 221 pound-feet of torque. I think you have like 207 pound-feet of torque in the front-wheel drive versions, but here for the 4Motion all-wheel drive, 221 pound-feet. And if that isn't enough for you, because it will result in probably a mid-7 seconds 0 to 60 time, which is, you know, pretty par for the course. So it's nice to have the turbo because some of the others are naturally aspirated or slower or both. And so, you know, this is a decent amount of power, actually. I had no complaints with the power once the engine and transmission figured out what I wanted to do. That transmission, by the way, is an 8-speed automatic as well. And if you do want more power, though, a Tiguan Turbo is coming. Even though all these are turbocharged, there's a new trim called the Tiguan Turbo that'll do 268 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque. That's coming here for the 2026 model year, so stay tuned for that if that is something you would enjoy. But, you know, this is going to be fine for most people. Again, for a family crossover, you don't really need more than this anyway. And again, it's been completely fine. We had this thing loaded up, packed to the gills with beach stuff, and you know, just loaded up the cargo area, loaded up with people, and this thing still was completely fine. So I have no complaints with the power. It's again just the response that needs to be a little bit better. And also, by the way, putting that power to the ground is a 4Motion all-wheel drive system that costs $1,500 extra on everything except this top trim. So front-wheel drive does come standard, and front-wheel drive is actually nice to have. I like that they offer that still, because there's a lot of sunny places where you don't need all-wheel drive, and companies like Mazda and Subaru force you into all-wheel drive needlessly and drive the prices of those vehicles up as a result, versus this having the nice savings of offering that front-wheel drive for people who are more pragmatic and realize they probably don't need all-wheel drive where they live. Otherwise, so this road that we're on currently does usually generate a little bit more road noise, and you can hear a little bit of that, but on this top trim you also do have an acoustic windshield, which is great, and so that's going to quiet things down a little bit. Again, nothing drastic, but this whole platform should be a little bit better as well. It's a stiffer platform for this MQB Evo platform we have here, and so that extra rigidity means we'll have better ride quality, and also, again, it's a little bit more refinement. And I spent a week with the last generation Tiguan a few years ago, and you know, I mean, I'd have to drive them both back to back to truly say, but for me, this definitely felt, you know, I'd say about the same, maybe a tiny bit less jittery than the last generation. This one doesn't help itself either, because we do have, again, these giant wheels, and if you had some smaller wheels on the lower trims, you would almost certainly have, you know, a smoother ride. And there's no adaptive dampers or anything on this, but none of the competitors have that either. But see, like there, I literally chirped the front tire, which you shouldn't really do with all-wheel drive anyway. I just chirped the front tire, just trying to make a 90-degree turn, just gently. I wasn't trying to race around here, and it's just, again, a little all over the place. And I'll go ahead and put it in the normal mode again in a few minutes and continue to drive in that. But we'll leave it in the sport mode here because we are coming up to some corners here I always take, so let's see how it handles. So again, these 20-inch wheels are certainly going to help you for sure. And we have these Pirelli Scorpion all-season tires, and the handling is actually quite good. I'd say it's one of the better ones in this segment. I don't know if it handles quite as well as the Mazdas in my opinion, but it's up there. It is definitely one of the better handling ones, and nice and flat, especially the R-Line version here. And it is very good. So I'm pretty impressed with that, and it's also great because he's actually lost 170 pounds, partially thanks to ditching that third row, and again, the shorter overhang. So this is actually lighter than the last generation, which is really unheard of these days, and I have to commend them for, you know, the attempt at, you know, losing some weight here with this. And so it's really, you know, a really nice handler as a result. These curb weight are about 35.62, I believe, and so that's for the base curb weight. This one's probably a little bit heavier with all this stuff on it, but you know, I mean, it's doing a really good job here, and I've been, again, completely happy with the handling this week, and yeah, I'd say it's definitely one of the top ones in its segment, and yeah, I just really like it. And I know people don't drive these like sports cars, but if you happen to find yourself on a back road or in a hurry, you know, just know that this will keep up with you pretty well. Now, you know, if you push it, obviously you will find the limits, and of course, whenever you have the all-wheel drive system, you know, you do have some more sure-footedness there. You also get an extra off-road drive mode as well as a snow driving mode with the all-wheel drive versions, which is certainly appreciated as well. But the all-wheel drive system, of course, is just a simpler kind of all-wheel drive, but it does, you know, it is a physical all-wheel drive system, and it does, you know, shift the power around there as needed. So yeah, we'll go ahead though and put it back into the normal mode here. There's also, by the way, it's called comfort mode. There's also a custom mode where you can custom tailor everything. So if you want, you know, the sportier response of the sport mode, but you want to have, you know, other stuff in the normal mode, you can do that as well. The thing I really do love is that the turbo is very well suited, even these low RPMs, where I can lean on that turbo and the transmission doesn't immediately rev to the sky. You know, it kind of, you know, sits at 2,000 RPMs, but you really have a nice boost of turbo building there as you accelerate. And the powertrain is really good. It's just, it's just that one missing connection. This is so close to greatness. If it had better throttle response, this might be actually one of my favorites, if not my absolute favorite in this segment. It's really well done with everything else. And again, just the interior being so impressive, the great looks, the great paint color. This has a lot going for it. So it's just going to go down to a test drive for yourself as far as can you live with the throttle response and, you know, if it's a deal breaker or not. But, you know, I have learned to live with it this week. And if you love everything else about this vehicle enough, I think it shouldn't be a deal breaker, but it's just unfortunate that they, you know, got so close to greatness and just barely missed the mark there. And now we're out on the highway here in the Tiguan, and it's been a really nice highway cruiser as well. I've been, again, on the highway for several hundred miles in this thing at this point, and it's really well done. So the really great thing I love about it is that it gets everything as standard as far as all the safety tech. All that stuff comes standard, so blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, all that is standard. That's something, again, many others still do charge you extra, even for blind spot monitoring, and, you know, some others do still charge you for adaptive cruise, and so it's just great you have all that as standard. You also just have, you know, a really good system here. They just did a really good job with it. So, you know, I've been driving, again, a lot of miles, and I've had this system on for much of that time, and it does a really good job with reliable lane centering. And, you know, like right now we're going around a gentle corner, I'm kind of letting it do the steering, kind of hovering my hands on the wheel here, and it's done a very good job. It's a marked improvement because Volkswagens in the past haven't been the best with this, and this newest system is absolutely right up there with the best in this segment, in my opinion. It didn't really lose track of the road lines very often, if at all. It never failed to keep me in the lane. Some other systems, they'll go right over the lines. This didn't do that, and I gave it, you know, several hours of highway driving to have that opportunity, and it never did. So I'm very happy with this system. It hasn't been too annoying or anything. All these adaptive cruise systems still are a little overly cautious with following distances and stuff, so if you are in tighter highway traffic, or, you know, stuff where you have a little bit more urgency than, you know, having a 3-car length distance between you and the car in front of you, you know, you're gonna have to take matters into your own hands. But, you know, for the relaxed highway cruising especially, this was a real, you know, nice little break to have. And, you know, I think the only one that kind of potentially could outdo this someday is the Nissan Rogue, which does have a hands-free system for $3,200 extra that balloons the price of those like crazy. And it's not a very good hands-free system, but that one is the first to attempt to do hands-free in this segment. We will see, again, if Volkswagen joins the club at any point in the future. But in the meantime, really, really well done as far as that goes. And on the highway here, it's also, you know, pretty quiet too. I think this is actually better than some of the others as far as that goes as well. And you know, so they just did a really good job here with this. And, you know, higher highway speeds here, I mean, again, with these wheels you do feel the bumps a little bit, but it wasn't uncomfortable or annoying at any point during the long drive, and that's commendable. So yeah, they did a great job, and this has been a great highway companion for now 500 miles. One other fun little observation, if you're an enthusiast like I am, is that you hear you actually hear a little blow-off valve sound. You hear the turbo induction sounds, and some might say that's unrefined because most of the competitors that have turbos, you don't hear the turbo whooshing away. But if you're someone like me who enjoys turbo sounds, that actually put a little smile on my face this week whenever I'd hear that little sound of the turbo. It's kind of fun. So just one other, fun little thing. But one other thing to mention here is the fuel economy in these. So these are rated at 22 mpg in the city, 30 on the highway, and 25 combined for the all-wheel drive versions. If you go for front-wheel drive, you get a gain of about 3 mpg across the board there. So a nice improvement. Again, if you don't need the all-wheel drive, skip it, and you have the better efficiency, which is great. Now, unfortunately, there is no hybrid version or plug-in hybrid version of this available. There is a hybrid version in Europe, and it sounds like Volkswagen's talking about maybe bringing that eventually, but for now, no such luck. And that is a sore spot because many of the other competitors out there these days have hybrid and even plug-in hybrid versions in many cases, and this has neither. But, a lot of the other competitors also don't have that. So this isn't, the only one that misses out on that extra efficiency. But just know if you want good fuel economy, you're going to have to find a hybrid with one of the other competitors there. During my driving, by the way, I've been averaging 28.1 mpg over 504 miles now officially. And that fuel economy is pretty good. I mean, I'm almost at that highway number. And that driving, was a large majority highway, but there was also some around town beach kind of driving, and also a little bit of driving here once I got back home. So, all things considered, whenever I was out on the highway, I was seeing above 29 mpg. So I would say I'm pretty close to that highway rating there. And so, even if you're on some lower speed highways or you don't have everything loaded up on a hot summer day, you might actually get even better fuel economy than that. And then really the last thing to mention though here is the pricing and how this compares to the competition. So let's talk about that. So the 2025 Tiguan starts at $30,920, and this top trim was $41,635 as tested. If you're looking to buy a Tiguan or any new car, you should definitely go to maranmotoring.com and click on the new car quotes page. There you'll get access to dealer invoice pricing, as well as getting connected with a local dealer in your area to check out the Tiguan in person and see what you think about it. So there's going to be a link in the description, as well as one in a pinned comment to take you straight to that site and get you all that info. But now let's talk about how the Tiguan compares to its many competitors. I'm going to be as brief as I can here, although this is the most competitive segment in the auto industry. But the first thing to keep in mind is that all these prices could change due to tariffs. But these comparisons and prices are accurate as of July of 2025 here. The other thing to keep in mind is that Volkswagen has a unique warranty that's both good and bad. The good is that the bumper-to-bumper coverage is longer at 4 years and 50,000 miles compared to the 3 years and 36 you get in most other vehicles. But the bad part is that the warranty period is the same for the powertrain, meaning all the most expensive bits get 1 year and 10,000 miles less coverage than what all the competitors offer. And the Koreans, along with Mitsubishi, even do a 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. The other thing to keep in mind is that none of the competitors will offer massage like the Tiguan does, and none can top its screen size other than the next-gen Mazda CX-5 for 2026. No other competitor has the rear throttle response the Volkswagen does either, though. But now, let's quickly go over how each competitor compares. The lowest starting price in the segment is the Chevy Equinox, which starts about $1,000 less, but gives you less standard features like no dual zone climate control and much less power. But if you don't mind those compromises, even fully loaded, it's $3,000 less than Tiguan. Next, we have the Kia Sportage, which even with its new 2026 refresh has pricing that starts about $850 less, and even on the top end with fully loaded models, it's about $700 less with comparable features. Plus, it offers that longer warranty and also the option for hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions for those who do want better fuel economy. The Hyundai Tucson is a similarly great value, starting at $700 less and exactly $5 more fully loaded. Talking about, again, how competitive all these vehicles are. $5 more. Anyway, it got a nice refresh here for 2025, and it too offers that longer warranty along with hybrid and plug-in hybrid variants. The Mazda CX-5 just had its 2026 version revealed. We don't have pricing or many details for it yet either, but for the current 2025s, a comparable trim to the base Tiguan is $600 more, but that does give you all-wheel drive. But the CX-5 is the oldest in the segment, as well as being smaller, less powerful, but it is about $4,000 less fully loaded, and there is a turbo version already available with 250 horsepower for those who do want more power. Mazda also offers the CX-50. It's about $1,000 more expensive, but again, gives you that all-wheel drive as standard, plus you get leatherette seats. The downside is less power, but you do have turbo and hybrid versions available again there. And even if it is about $2,000 less fully loaded, you don't get a heated steering wheel unless you go up to the turbo version. So, it's again, not completely identical equipment here, but another very nice one though. And the rest of the competitors carry a price premium and aren't as good of a value as the Tiguan in my opinion. So first there's the Toyota RAV4, which is the top seller in the segment here. And there's a new one coming for the 2026 model year, but we don't have pricing for that one yet either. So for the current RAV4, an XLE trim is actually the comparable trim to the base Tiguan, and that's about $2,000 more expensive. And when you go up to a loaded trim of the RAV4, that's also about $1,300 more expensive. Now, Toyota reliability is pretty much unbeatable, but the current RAV4 is feeling a little dated at this point. It does offer a hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions though as well, which is great. Then the next closest in price is the Nissan Rogue, but for it, the SV Premium trim is actually comparable to the base Tiguan, and that's also $2,000 more expensive and about $700 more fully loaded without the tech package, which means you wouldn't have a 360 camera, but if that's a must-have feature, then you have to spend another $3,200 to add on a tech package, and that's going to be, again, much more expensive here than Tiguan. That interior is also less impressive in the Rogue, and it also has a loud powertrain that I didn't love. The Ford Escape starts about $2,500 more expensive for a comparable trim, and its fully loaded one with a turbo is about $400 more expensive. So if you are after more power, that's the one area where Escape might be a slightly better value there. So that's not too far off. And it also does offer a hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions as well, but like the RAV4, the Escape is just old, and it doesn't sound like Ford is even planning to do a next generation of that one, surprisingly. The second bestseller in this segment is the Honda CR-V, and for 2026, an EX trim is comparable, and that's $3,500 more expensive, basically. And on the top end, you'll pay about $2,000 more, but that comes standard with the hybrid powertrain, although Honda won't give you cooled seats or a panoramic roof no matter how much you pay, and it also does have a much smaller screen. The Mitsubishi Outlander is $3,300 more to start for a comparable trim, although you do get leatherette in that trim that is comparing with this Tiguan. And then on the top end, you'll spend about $3,000 more as well. But Mitsubishi is probably the most generous with discounts. Them and Nissan are both pretty good, but I think Mitsubishi especially, there's a very good chance you definitely should not be paying MSRP for a Mitsubishi. So real world deals for that one in particular might be much better if your real world deal turns out to be better. Obviously this whole equation gets changed. So it all comes down to your individual deal and price quotes. But the Outlander also has a very tiny third row, a surprisingly plush interior, and also offers a plug-in hybrid version as well. And I actually really have been impressed with the Outlander. Lastly, we have the Subaru Forester that amazingly starts $5,000 or so more expensive for a comparable trim, which is the premium in the Forester. And on the top end, it's about $1,500 more expensive still, while having less power and worse tech. But it does now offer a hybrid at least, so it has that going for it. So yeah, overall, I really like the Tiguan here. I mean, the fact that it is priced so well is really great, and the fact that, again, you get all these nice things, the massaging seats, the biggest screen, some great looks. It really ticks basically all the boxes, and again, even with the annoying throttle response, I think that this is now in my mind one of the top ones in this segment, especially when you consider the value. Obviously the top sellers in this segment, you know, are still going to be the top sellers in this segment, and you know, they have their reputations and their familiarity and all of that. But I think if you're open to something that's not in one of the top sellers in this segment, you know, I think that this can be actually, you know, one of the best values out there, if not, again, the best. You know, it still is just really well done. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2025 Tiguan. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Volkswagen for providing me here at this vehicle to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. Take care.